I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to do the chainsaw carved bear. This is the stump bear. The illusion is that there is a bear. He has crawled through a hollow log, and now the top half of the bear is sticking out. This part of the log is just supposed to represent the broken hollow log. People ask all the time what this is for. If you're supposed to put something in there, I mean, you can. I've seen people use it as like a mail holder. Put your whatever in there, hold it. I've seen it happen, but the reason I put it there is just for the illusion that the log is hollow and broken, and this is a part of it. So this is just going to be the chainsaw work. I'm not going to show the finish of the grinder in this video. I will be making another one, and that'll grind in his nose and his mouth, give him eyes, and I'll do another video for that. This is just what's done with the chainsaw. So I'm starting off with a 10-inch log, 10 inches tall by about 6 inches wide. So to start, first thing I'm going to do is shave off a very small amount right here. Right off the top, it's going to be a straight cut, and just shave off not even a 1/4 inch. And that's going to be where his eyebrows sit. And then underneath, I'm going to make however long you want your nose, however wide you want it. I'll make it about this wide. So I'm going to do a straight cut in there to do his nose. So I'm going to do that right quick. So I've cut in here and taken off this tiny piece for his eyebrows. This is going to be his eyebrows right here. Like I said, it's a very small cut. You just basically shave it, and that's where his eyebrows are going to go. For the nose, I cut in here underneath. So this is going to leave his nose right here. And you do want to angle it a little bit. See, it's angled kind of downward. And that gives the nose a little bit of a rounder feel to it. Otherwise, it's going to be just a flat nose. So you want to angle down. The next cut I'm going to do, I'm going to come in down here. And I'm going to cut at an upward angle. If you could see the angle of my hand, kind of how I'm angling it. I'm going to angle straight up from here into here. So the cut will come from here down. And that'll give us his chest. So this will give us the chest cut. And you can see where the wood was. That I came and I angled down from the bottom and cut upwards. And took out this chunk right here. So that one is right there. That's gone now. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is the nose. You're going to make a triangle. So kind of find the center. You want to leave, that's going to be the center of his nose. So what I'll do is I'll start just off center here and cut a triangle and leave that. I'll do the same for the ear cuts. I'm going to just cut off a triangle here and a triangle here. So here's what that looks like now. You've got your triangle nose. This will come off, here will come off, and this will come off, and this will come off. When you do the nose cut, you want to come in to right where you made your line for your eyebrows. So the cut will start here, go into where the eyebrows are, and then straight down. And you don't want to go too deep because you'll have lines in your cheeks. So just here. And as far as the ears, you could see I left about this much for the ears. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and remove these chunks, as this is all the wood that needs removed. And then I'm going to cut an angle on his back here. So right here, I'm going to angle down kind of like this and just take off a small bit of wood there, and that'll round the back of his head. So here he's starting to take a little bit more shape. And here's the cut I made on the back of the head. It's just a very small amount of wood. Just shaved that off here. Oh, those pieces are trash. So now his head is going to be a little more rounded in the back here. Now I'm going to go ahead and make that cut that gives him the piece of the log left over. So that'll be this cut. And to make that, what I'll do is you're going to come in at an angle like this. So I'll come in for here and angle downward. You don't want to go too far down, because this is going to also give you the length of your arms. See where you stop here is where the bottom of the arm will come in. So we'll come down just a little below the head, about, I don't know, about 2 inches. So I'm going to make that cut real quick. Okay, so here's the cut. It's angled in slightly, but not too far. Now this leaves his back looking pretty flat. So what we'll do is we'll take off a piece of it here. So you see how the top is just really high up. If we angle the saw inwards and come down, it'll give us room back here so that we can get in there to put hair. And it makes it a little bit shorter so it's not quite so tall. So I'm going to take that and do exactly that, cut here and down. So here's what it looks like. You can kind of see where the cut came in, and I pulled that part right out. So now we've got room back here to work with. We can put the hair on the back of the bear. So I'm going to come back around to his front now. And what I'm going to do is cut in his ears. So to give his ears a better look, I'll come in at an angle from the top here. Same with this side. And then from the bottom here. And then scoop up just a little here to give his ear some definition. And you can see here how I just cut down a tiny bit and then shaved it upwards. Barely removed any wood there, just shaved it upwards. Did the same on this side. Cut down a little bit and then shaved it upwards. So now I've got these 2 cuts here for the top of his ears. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chainsaw and come right in the middle, angle it down towards this cut. So it'll come from here to here. That'll leave it a little bit of a bump in the middle. All right, that part is done. You can see there's still a small bump in the middle. And this is kind of how we round his head. We'll just smooth that out a little bit and it'll round his head. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove this triangle part of his nose. So I'm going to cut at an angle down and in on both sides. And that'll make it more rounded. And here's those 2 cuts. Just came in and in. Now what I need to do is take these off. So I'm just going to go straight down on the side here and take both of these off. And then I'm going to shorten my nose a little bit because it's looking pretty long. I want it a little bit shorter than that. So I'm just going to shave off a little bit here on the tip. And then I'm going to take the bar and round it here very gently with the chainsaw bar. I'll show you that. So I've removed the pieces here and then just shaved gently off the sides. I'm going to show you how to angle your chainsaw to do that real quick. Let me hand my phone to my trusty assistant here. Mr. Bear is my trusty assistant to hold my phone. So what I'm talking about by gently, barely touching it with the bar, you take your chainsaw and you angle it. So here's straight. I'm going to angle it upwards slightly and just barely touch it with the top of the chain as I go. So just gently swipe it. I'm almost using the chain as a grinder. So I'm going to gently swipe the corners here, swipe underneath here, here, and just everywhere where there's a sharp edge, very, very gently with the top of your saw or the top of the blade on the saw here. You're just going to gently sweep it across. So you kind of grind that area with it. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give some shape to his cheeks. I'll come in here and go down. I don't want his head much lower than his nose. So I'll just take this chainsaw and kind of twist it in a circular motion. So you start here, circle down. And same on this side, circle down. I'll do that real fast. And so that's that cut that rounds his head. You can see my cheeks are a little bit uneven right now. It's not a big deal. We'll fix that later. This side's kind of sticking out where this side is not. We'll fix that later. So next what we're going to do is remove these pieces here. Just take a cut from the bottom, angled upwards towards this cut. And we'll take this chunk out on both sides. So I've taken that chunk out. It would be right here. You can see how you bring the chainsaw in up and you take that part out. So now that's gone. What I'm going to do now is make the arms. So we'll come and we'll take the saw across with a line and then another line that meets in the middle. So it'll make like a V, and that'll be the tops of his arms. You can see where it came in on both sides, made your V for your chest. This will be the top of your arms. And then I came down, straight down, to cut a line between the two arms so they're not trying to connect to each other. So from here, I'm going to make a line sideways. That's where his hand will be. And then come around the sides all the way to here. So this will be the bottom of his arm. I'm going to do that real quick. All right, we now have the bottom of his arms, and you can see where I took the saw and dipped in a little to give him an elbow, and then up a little where his wrist would be. So his wrist is here, elbow's back here. So you kind of get a dip and then up. Now this part right here where I'm going to cut his paws. So here's where his paws will be, and you'll have little lines for his claws. It leaves this triangular look right here. I don't like that personally, so I'll come in and make a cut here and then just get this little triangle out of the way because I don't like that. So we've got a pretty good shape for the bear. Now it's just all shaping and finish work. So for my next move, I'm going to remove some of this top part off of the arm. It's angled in pretty hard and doesn't really have an arm shape. So here I'm going to come with the saw and angle inwards towards his chest just a little and take off this top part here. And I'll do the same on the other side. I'm also going to remove the bark from the arms because we don't want that there when we're putting the hair. So in order to remove the bark, I did the same thing I was showing with how to round his nose with the tip of the chainsaw bar, the top of it. Did the same thing to remove the bark. Just slowly drag it across until the bark is pretty much gone. Now there's a little bit left there. I'm just going to take that off as I'm going. Now his arms are still a little bit funky. Right here there's a little bit of a hard edge. So I'll take the top of the bar and just come down and roll it upwards towards his face lightly, very gently, and just round that off. So for now, what I'm going to do next, he looks pretty flat in the back. You can see this sharp angle right here, and it's flat. I don't like that. So what I'll do is take the chainsaw and angle inward and make like a swooping motion from his cheek down. And it's going to be right on the edge. So I did this one in 2 cuts just to show what the swoop should look like. Swooped down, I swooped back up. You can do that if you want to. I usually do it in one solid motion. But that's going to take off this chunk here and round his body just enough to make him look like he's not flat anymore. So do that on both sides. And then the next thing is his ears. So we've got ears that are oblong and come all the way back. We'll just take a cut from here to here and then slightly angled here. So boom and boom, kind of like a triangle, but more rounded than what a triangle would look like. Do that to both ears. And here's what the ear will look like once you cut it off. So here's the cut. I left this one on to show you what the cut looks like. And it comes in and kind of around. And then you just take this part and shave it off. Then you'll take the tip of the bar and shave the ear very gently and make it round. So now I've got the round ear over here. You can see it was gently shaved. Took off all the sharp edges and rounded it. We're going to do the same to this ear. Take off this sharp edge here and here, and then take this part off as well. So this is also the opportunity to even out the ears. As you can see, I've got one ear that's slightly larger than the other. So what I'll do is take off a little bit down here and then round it a little more here, a little more here, and give his ears that even shape. Now his ears are more even. I'm going to even off his face. I don't want this big chunk here sticking out. That you can see this part of his face is pretty rounded. This is an oblong shape. So I'm going to just cut around here, again using the top of the chainsaw bar, and just drag it along, gently shaving off little by little, because you don't want to cut too much off. So little by little, I'll just shave the bar down until this side matches this side. I'm also going to shave it up a little bit here to give it more of a rounded look, so we don't have this flat head going on. So despite my best efforts to shave very gently and not take too much off, I took a little too much off. I rounded a little bit on this side and made it match a little bit more. I'm gonna round just a little shade more to get that to match. And then also I want to come around to the back and round his head off. We still have this flat look here, and we've got this oblong bump here. So I'm just gonna take the blade and gently shave downward, and that'll shave this funny edge off of it. Now that I've gone down gently across it, it gives his head a little bit more of a rounded look. So now I'm going to come back to his paws, and that'll be right here. You can see the wood kind of comes down right here. There's not really a difference between his hand and this part of the wood, so I'm going to put in just a darker line here, a little bit deeper, and here, just to give it definition so it's separated more from the log. You can now see the definition that separates where his claws will be from the log. Next, I'm going to put little sockets in for his eyes and his ears. You can see where his eye socket will now be, and his ear has this little dip in it. I'm going to show you how to do that. Hand my phone back to my trusty assistant here. So the way I did that, I've got a 12-inch bar. It's got a dime tip on it. So that bar, the very tip of it is what you're using for this. You take the saw and you lay it against his nose so that it's evenly against his nose. And then you take the bar and just swoop it outwards. Put it in, swoop it outwards. So you're doing kind of a cupping motion to swoop. And you'll do the same with his ear. Put it up against here and swoop out. Now, if you look at how this one lines up, you can see exactly how I did that. Put that bar right up against his cheek, put the very tip in where I want it, and swoop outwards. So the saw goes down and the blade goes up. Same with his eye, it was the same thing. So I'm going to do the other side, and then we're about ready for hair. So I'm going to do his eyebrow first, and then his hair. So we don't want him to have a unibrow, which he has now. I'll just put a straight line right by the center of his nose, not on his nose though, where the eyebrow line is, just a straight line about half an inch back towards the back of his head. All right, it's a little more than a half inch, but not quite a full inch, just a straight line. Now we'll take the bar and just take tiny swoops. This time we want to leave lines though from the bar. This is what's going to give him hair. We are now ready to hair this bear. He just needs a teeny bit more shaping right here. You don't want this so pointed. So we'll do that while we're putting the hair on. Now, for the hair, what I do is I take the chainsaw and angle it in. So the top is angled in towards my body. And then with the tip of the bar, I'll put it onto the carving and slowly go back and forth, like a back and forth motion. Well, I said slowly, you actually kind of got to do it quick. So you make like a quick motion, and you're just drawing on the bear with the top of your chainsaw. You just want to be using the very top of the bar, right at the tip on the top. Angled in, so you're leaving lines, jerky motion back and forth, and that's going to put hair on him. All right. One thing to remember is that when you're putting the hair on him, the angle of your saw is going to direct the direction of the hair. So this is his arm. I want his hair to kind of lay down, because that's what a bear's hair would look like. You wouldn't want it standing straight. Well, maybe you would want it standing straight up. That's your decision. But I want mine going down, so that's why I angled the saw like this. But when I came to do this part, if I continue to hold the saw like this, it's not going to quite do what I'm looking for. So I did use the bottom of the tip for this part and just slowly drug it down. And you're basically just drawing on the wood with your saw blade. Now what I'm going to do is this chest here. So I'm going to take this blade and go across, doing that same up and down zigzag motion across here. Careful not to hit his nose too far. If you get it a little bit, we can get that off with the grinder later, but you don't want to get it too far. You'll end up cutting halfway into his nose and it ain't going to look right. So we'll go do that here, and then also on the sides here, just to break this edge so it's not so blocky, I'm going to just take this saw and go up, down, right here, and also on this side. So just up and down, right on the edge. And I don't know if you can see that very well. I'm going to switch over real quick. So right here where it's kind of blocky, we're just going up, down, right here on the sides, just to break the edge. And then down the middle also. At this point, now that I've broken the edge off, you could still see a pretty distinct line that came from the chainsaw here. I need to get that out of there. Also, I'm not loving how this flows. It doesn't have quite the definition I want in an arm. So I'm just going to take the saw and go around this same line I've already made, make it a little bit deeper. And then of course I am going to have to put new hair on this spot because I'll be cutting that out as I go. Okay, so you can see how it's much more defined here now than it is over here. If you liked it better that way, you can leave it that way, or you could go just a little bit more, a little bit deeper, and put a little more hair. Now, one important thing that a lot of people forget is the bottom of his arm right here. So you can see right along the edge where he's coming out of the log, this part of his hair or arm isn't haired. So what I'll do for that is I'll just take the chainsaw blade and go under like so, and just the same jerky motion and barely touching on the very bottom of his arm, and that'll give him hair there. So after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and do his eyebrows. So for the eyebrows, you're going to take your chainsaw blade and angle it down, if you could see how it's angled, and just lightly draw away from his eyebrows. You need to draw in this direction if you want his hair to flow down his face. Whatever direction you drag your saw is the direction the hair is going to go. So on the other side, I'll take the blade and go the opposite direction. And it'll be the same thing, going sideways away from the eyebrow and towards the cheek. So I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so you can hardly see it at the moment. Sorry, there's some bar oil on there. But I just drew away from the eyebrow, and now it's not a big line anymore. It just gives him a small dip there to separate his two eyebrows from each other. Now I'll do the same thing I did with his arms to get the hair on here. I'll do it across the head and go, I'll start on his ear and zigzag pattern all the way across on the whole top of his head, being careful not to mess up the hair that I already made on his eyebrows, and maybe just give a little more definition on this side. Alright, now that I've finished the top of his head, I want to get his cheeks in. So, in order to do that, this part is one of the hardest parts to master. moving the chainsaw at upward angles, holding it upside down and angling it. One of the hardest parts to master. I've been doing this for 10 plus years, so it's something that I don't struggle with anymore. But believe me, when I first started, I couldn't manage it. So what I'll do is I'll hold the bar up against his face. I'm using just the top of the bar here, right at the tip, but just the top. And I'm going to do the same drawing and the zigzag motion going around and into his cheek all the way to his nose. So starting at the top, go around and all the way in towards his nose. I'll do the same on the opposite side, holding the bar at this angle, coming in here at the top, zigzag pattern, and go down, keep zigzag patterning till you come to his face. If you struggle with that, which I did a lot, instead of doing it all the way down and swooped around, what I used to do is just zigzag his face and just zigzag the whole thing. That can be done. I don't do it that way anymore. I prefer the look of the hair when I angle it like that. So you do it the way you want to do it. And you can see that the swoopy part, it swoops from here in. And then from here, starting on the inside of his ear, because you don't want to leave it looking like that. So starting inside the ear, pulled it around and down. Again, zigzagging up and, well, it's not kind of a zigzag. It's up and down motion while you're moving the saw. And you're going to go ahead and keep going along the back of his head till you get to here. Now I've gone ahead and haired the back of him. That's just an up and down motion. And just up and down, up and down, up and down. Smaller zigzags or smaller up and downs give you a smaller bit of hair. Larger ones, longer strokes up and down will give you these longer looking pieces of hair. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the other side of his face, get it to match this side, and we're almost done. The other thing to remember is on the bottom of his face here, you could still see the chainsaw line. Again, that's something I didn't hit from the top coming down with that bar. You can't quite get that spot, so I'll have to come back at it, and I'll bring the chainsaw at a different angle here. So the chainsaw will come from here and still swooping backwards because I want the hair to go backwards. I'll even that out. And then right here as well, I'm going to do this part of his cheek to make it blend more flawlessly in. So his face doesn't match quite yet. I was going to bring this up. If you want a little bit more of an eyebrow here, if you hold the saw in this spot just a little bit longer instead of zigzagging quickly, you just go a lot slower, up, down, and slowly move through it, and it leaves a deeper groove or indent, and that gives him a little bit bushier of an eyebrow as compared to if you're moving through quick. So from here, we're pretty much finished. Just go through and look for any imperfections, anything you don't love about it. When I was doing his chest here, I did get a small hit right here on his nose. So I'm just going to shave gently with the tip of the bar right from the top. Get that out of there. I don't like right here. I'm going to put some hair in there. I missed that little spot there. And here I still have a line I don't love, so I'll get rid of that. So now you just look for any imperfections or anything that could be fixed. Hairing the ears, that's one of the more difficult things to do. So we haired the top of the ears when we did his head, and you just have to keep that flow going down his ears. It just doesn't flow very well. So I'm still going to do that part here. And I've just haired his back here. Again, when you do in the cheeks, you just keep working around and coming back and working around. All right, and this is completed with the carving portion. Pull him off the log. And here is being finished with the carving portion. I will do another video to finish off the rest of him. He'll get his nose. Oop, I'm gonna tip him over. He'll get a nose cut in with a grinder. He'll get a mouth cut in with a grinder. And then we'll give him his eyes. And his claws also we'll do with the grinder because the chainsaw is just too big and it's going to cut giant claws into him. So that is finished with the carving portion. And I went around, looked for any of the imperfections I didn't like and fixed them up. But as with any art project, I'm sure I'll find more as I'm doing finish work on him, and I'll want to fix those. So we'll see when we come back for the finishing part. So part 2 of the video, show finish work on him. And I'll see what other imperfections I've found that I want to fix before I call him a final product.